It's hard to put into words, honestly, and it feels different at different times. When my anxiety is high, it feels like an absolute inability to make decisions. Like, I would rather not do something than decide what to do. And it's almost paralyzing, which is odd, because it seems like it's simple. Do you want to go on a walk or sit on the couch and watch TV? And I'm like, I can't figure that out. I don't have the brain power. It feels like decision fatigue. And then depression is different. My version of it feels very restricted, like if you're trying to put on like a latex glove that's way too small for your hand. Also, it sort of coincides with this feeling of not being excited about anything, which again, on a day when you feel great or even normal, you can get excited about things. Like you're like, oh, I'm gonna have pizza today, or I'm gonna see a friend today, or all of the fun things about life. And when I'm having depression, it's like none of those things are exciting or seem worth it. So there's this real disconnect, because I know logically that should be a feeling that induces some happiness, but it's like my depression will not let me recognize those feelings. At 40, I don't believe anything should be taboo anymore. Like, I talked to my kids about sex, and yes, they're very young, but they wanted to know how they got here. And we talked about it, and they were grossed out and left the room, and that's fine. But I think that anything that's taboo and hard to talk about should be some of the first priorities you should be talking about with the support systems in your life. I wish that I had known as a person in the public eye to talk about it publicly at an earlier date. I had been acting and, doing publicity for a while, and I was at the last stretch of 2 movies of a press tour, and I'd done all these interviews, and I was lying in bed about to do Sam Jones, which is a long form interview. Like, it's like a 45-minute to an hour sit down, so you better be prepared to talk, right? And I said to my husband, God, I have nothing to talk about. I feel exhausted. Like, I've said every story about my life. And he said, why don't you talk about your struggle with anxiety and depression? And it was a huge light bulb. I was like, I've never done that. I was experiencing the same thing that everyone else was, which is like, well, just don't talk about that. And then I just felt so inauthentic and irresponsible to have been presenting this bubbly, happy person, which is someone that I cultivate and I nurture and I try really hard to exist as. And I just wasn't being honest with the people, the girls who may look up to me. And so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna talk about it. And so I don't even think that Sam knew, but during that interview, I was like, actually, for a period of my life, and periods, and often, and sometimes just on a random Wednesday, I feel this way. And then we started to get more in depth, and I found myself really happy to be admitting all of it. And the response I got from that interview was astounding to me. So many people saying, I've felt that way too. Thank you for saying it out loud. You gave me the courage to say it out loud, which I did practically nothing other than do what I should do, which is be honest and authentic. And it was a huge turning point in my life. I just felt a huge sense of responsibility. And so I kept talking about it, and I talk about it a lot.